Cathari pressed 3 of her tentacles against the observation deck's cool surface and stared at the blue-green planet below. The world spun slowly, showing patches of brown and green land between vast oceans. It looked peaceful from up here in the research ship. Down there, however, lived one of the strangest species she had ever studied. The other scientists called them two-legs because of how they walked. Most life forms in the galaxy had 4 legs, 6 legs, or many tentacles like Cathari's people. But these creatures stood upright on just 2 thin legs. It looked wrong somehow, like they might fall over at any moment. "Still watching the primitives?" asked Dr. Vextel as he slithered up beside her. His snake-like body coiled around a nearby chair. "I don't understand why the Confederation wastes time studying them. They're clearly a dead-end species." Cathari's eye stalk swiveled to look at her colleague. "The research protocols require complete documentation of all sapient life, even the simple ones." "Simple is right," Vextel hissed softly. "Look at them down there. They have no natural weapons. No claws, no fangs, no poison glands. Their skin is thin and tears easily. They can't even see in the dark properly. How did such weak creatures survive long enough to develop basic intelligence?" Through the ship's powerful sensors, Cathari watched a group of the two-legs in what they called a city. The creatures moved around in straight lines along hard surfaces they had built. Some rode in metal boxes with round things that spun. Others walked on their strange 2 legs. They all looked so fragile. "Perhaps they survived by hiding," she suggested. "Many weak species find caves or build nests in high places." "But these ones don't hide," said Dr. Zimara, joining the conversation. Her forearms gestured at the data screens. "They spread everywhere on this planet. They live in hot deserts and cold mountains. They even float on the water in wooden containers. It makes no sense for such a weak species to be so bold." Cathari had noticed this too. The 2 legs lived in almost every part of their world. Most species stayed in one type of place where they could survive best. Her own people, the Kethli, only lived in the warm, shallow seas of their homeworld. The Vex lived in hot, dry caves. The Zim preferred cold mountains with thin air, but these 2 legs seemed to live anywhere they wanted. They built their nests in forests on plains near water, even in frozen places where nothing should be able to live. How did they do it? "Maybe they're not as weak as they look," she said quietly. Vextel made a sound like laughter. "Not weak? Cathari, I've seen the data. An average Vex could overpower 10 of these creatures. A single Zim warrior could fight 50 of them. They have no natural defenses at all. Then how do they survive?" she asked. "Luck," Dr. Zimara said firmly. "And they breed quickly like insects. When predators eat some of them, they just make more." Cathari wasn't sure about that. She had been watching the 2 legs for many days now, and they did strange things that didn't make sense for a simple species. They spent huge amounts of time and energy on activities that had nothing to do with survival. She had watched them gather in large groups to make organized sounds together. They called it music. They also made colored marks on flat surfaces and called it art. Some of them spent their whole lives just looking at the stars and trying to understand them. Why would a primitive species waste so much energy on useless things? Even stranger, they took care of their weak members. When a 2 legs got hurt or sick, the others worked together to heal it. When they got old and couldn't work anymore, the young ones brought them food and shelter. In the galaxy, most species followed the natural law. The strong survived and the weak died quickly. It kept the species healthy and strong, but these 2 legs kept their weak alive for no good reason. "I've been watching their behavior patterns," Cathari said. "They do many things that seem unusual." "Like what?" Vextel asked. "They care for individuals who cannot contribute to the group's survival. They spend resources on activities that don't help them find food or avoid predators, and they seem to teach their young things that have nothing to do with staying alive." Dr. Zimara looked at her datapad. "Yes, we've noted these inefficiencies. It proves they haven't evolved proper survival instincts. A truly advanced species uses its energy only for necessary activities." Cathari watched a small 2 legs playing with what looked like a tiny version of an adult. The adult was watching carefully and making happy sounds. Neither of them was looking for food or watching for danger. They were just playing. Her own people only played when they were very young and only to practice hunting skills. These 2 legs seemed to play their entire lives even when they were old. "Perhaps," she said slowly, "their play serves a purpose we don't understand." "What purpose could there be?" Vextel asked. "Play is for learning survival skills. Once you're an adult, you should focus on serious things, finding food, avoiding danger, making offspring. But Cathari had seen adult two-legs playing games that seemed to have no connection to survival. They pushed a round object around a field with their feet. They hit a small ball with sticks. They arranged small pieces on boards in complex patterns. None of it made sense according to normal biological rules. The team from the Galactic Confederation will arrive soon, Dr. Zimara announced. They want our full report on the species before they make first contact. What will you recommend? Cathari asked. Standard primitive species protocols, Vextal replied. Careful introduction to galactic society. Relocation to a suitable preserve world where they can live safely. Maybe some of the stronger ones can be trained for simple jobs. Cathari's tentacles curled with uncertainty. What if they don't want to be relocated? Both of her colleagues looked at her with surprise. Why wouldn't they want help? Dr. Zimara asked. We're offering them safety and care. Their current life is obviously hard and dangerous. But they seem to like their hard and dangerous life, Cathari said. Look how they spread across their whole planet. If they wanted safety, wouldn't they all live in one safe place? They're too primitive to understand what's good for them, Vextal said with confidence. That's why advanced species like us have a duty to guide them. It's the natural order. Cathari turned back to watch the planet. The two-legs were building something new in one of their cities. It looked like a tall tower reaching toward the sky. Why build something so high? It would be much safer to build underground, or at least close to the ground. But there they were, working together to build something that touched the clouds. Maybe Vextal and Zimara were right. Maybe the two-legs were just too simple to understand danger. Maybe they needed guidance from wiser species. But something deep in Cathari's mind whispered that there might be more to these strange creatures than anyone realized. Something important that they were all missing. She decided to watch them more carefully before the Confederation arrived. After all, once first contact began, everything would change. This might be her last chance to observe the two-legs in their natural state. Little did she know that she was about to witness something that would challenge everything the galaxy thought it knew about intelligence, survival, and what it truly meant to be advanced. 3 months later, the massive Confederation ship hung in space above the two-legs planet. Cathari watched from her smaller research vessel as the great diplomatic craft prepared for first contact. She had spent those months studying the strange creatures below, and her report had created quite a stir among the Confederation Council. Fascinating but primitive, the council leader had declared after reading her findings. These two-legs show some interesting behaviors, but they clearly need guidance. We must help them before they destroy themselves. Now, Ambassador Thekroon stood in the main communication chamber, preparing to speak with the two-legs for the first time. Thekroon was a Vorth, a species known for their wisdom and patience in dealing with younger civilizations. His large gray body and 4 wise eyes made him look very official and important. Begin transmission, he ordered in his deep rumbling voice. The response came faster than expected. The two-legs had been watching the ships in space and were ready to talk. A female two-legs appeared on the screen. She had dark hair and wore simple clothing, but her eyes looked bright and alert. Greetings, she said in clear galactic standard. I am Ambassador Chen representing Earth and humanity. We welcome you to our system. Thekroon was surprised. He hadn't expected them to speak galactic standard so well or so quickly. Greetings, primitive ones, he replied kindly. I am Ambassador Thekroon of the Spiral Confederation. We have come to help your species join the galactic community. Something flickered in the two-legs' eyes, but her voice remained polite. Thank you for your interest, Ambassador. We look forward to learning about your confederation. Excellent, Thekroon said, pleased by their cooperation. We have studied your species and understand your needs. The Confederation is prepared to offer you a wonderful gift. Relocation to a safe preserve world where you can live without the dangers of your current environment. The two-legs named Chen was quiet for a moment. A preserve world? Yes, Thekroon explained patiently. Your current planet is clearly too dangerous for your species. You have natural disasters, predators, diseases, and many other threats. We can move your people to a protected world where you will be safe and cared for. That's very kind of you, Chen said slowly. But we're quite attached to Earth, it's our home. Thekroon's eyes blinked in confusion. But your home is dangerous. Many of your people die from things that wouldn't happen on a preserved world. Don't you want safety for your young? We appreciate the offer, Chen replied. but we prefer to stay here and face our challenges ourselves. In the observation room, Cathari watched the conversation with growing interest. This was not going as expected. Thickeroon tried again. Perhaps you don't understand. The preserve worlds are beautiful places with perfect weather, no dangerous animals, and unlimited food. Your people would never have to worry about anything again. It sounds peaceful, Chen agreed. But we've learned to handle our problems here. Earth may be dangerous, but it's made us who we are. But you could be so much more, Thickeroon insisted. The Confederation can teach you better ways to live. We have technology that could solve all your problems. We have medicine that could make you live longer.
We have systems that could make your society more efficient. Chen leaned forward slightly.
More efficient how? Well, Thickeroon said, happy to explain. You waste enormous amounts of energy on non-essential activities. Art, music, games, caring for the weak and old. In an efficient society, everyone contributes to survival and progress. The change in Chen's expression was small, but Cathari noticed it immediately. The two-legs' face became very still. I see, Chen said quietly. And what would happen to our art, music, and games in your efficient society? They would be replaced with more useful activities, Thickeroon explained. Your people could learn valuable skills instead. Mining, farming, basic manufacturing. Skills that actually help society function. And our elderly and disabled? They would be cared for in comfortable facilities where they wouldn't be a burden on the productive members of society. Chen was silent for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was very controlled. Ambassador Thickeroon, thank you for your generous offer. However, humanity must respectfully decline. Thickeroon's four eyes widened in shock. Decline? But we're offering you safety, comfort, and guidance. Why would you refuse such a gift? Because what you're offering isn't a gift, Chen said firmly. It's the end of everything that makes us human. I don't understand, Thickeroon admitted. We're trying to save you from a difficult existence. Our difficult existence is what made us strong, Chen replied. Our art and music and games aren't waste. They're what make life worth living. Our care for the weak and old isn't inefficiency. It's what makes us civilized. Cathari found herself agreeing with the two-legs, though she wasn't sure why. Thickeroon tried a different approach. Perhaps your leaders don't understand the benefits. Could we speak with someone in authority? Chen smiled for the first time in the conversation. I am speaking with authority, Ambassador. I represent my people's freely chosen government. But surely there are wiser individuals among your kind. Elder council members? Military leaders? Our government is chosen by all our people, Chen explained. We believe everyone should have a voice in how they're governed. This was getting worse from Thickeroon's perspective. A species where everyone had a say in government? It sounded like chaos. That must be very complicated, he said carefully. Sometimes, Chen agreed. But it's our way. Dr. Vextal slithered up beside Cathari. They're being unreasonable, he hissed quietly. They don't understand what's best for them. But Cathari was watching Chen's face carefully. The two-legs didn't look confused or frightened. She looked determined, like someone who knew exactly what she wanted. Thickeroon made one more attempt. Perhaps we could start smaller. We could take some of your people to visit our preserve worlds. Once they see how much better life could be, they might convince the others. No, Chen said simply. We stay together. But think of your children, Thickeroon pleaded. Don't you want them to have easier lives? Chen's smile became sad. Ambassador, our children are strong because their lives aren't easy. They learn to solve problems because they face problems. They become creative because they need to be creative to survive. They also die from diseases and accidents that could be prevented, Thickeroon pointed out. Yes, Chen said quietly, and that makes every life precious to us. When life is guaranteed, it becomes cheap. When life is fragile, we treasure it. Cathari felt something stir in her mind. She had never thought about it that way before. The conversation continued for another hour, but it was clear that neither side would change their position. The two-legs wanted to remain on their dangerous world and live their complicated lives. The Confederation wanted to save them from themselves. Finally, Thickeroon ended the communication with a promise to discuss the situation with the Council. They're making a terrible mistake, Dr. Zimara said, as the team gathered to review the first contact session. They don't understand how much we could help them. Maybe they understand more than we think, Cathari suggested. Everyone turned to look at her. What do you mean? Thekroon asked. Maybe they're not refusing our help because they don't understand it, she said slowly. Maybe they're refusing it because they do understand it. Impossible, Vextal declared. No rational species would choose hardship over comfort. But Cathari wasn't so sure anymore. The two legs had seemed very rational during the conversation. They knew exactly what they were choosing and why. The question was, did the Confederation really understand what they were asking the two legs to give up? As she watched the blue-green planet spinning below, Cathari wondered if perhaps the two legs understood something about life that the rest of the galaxy had forgotten. The Confederation Council was not pleased with the results of first contact. Emergency sessions were held across 3 days, with representatives from dozens of species arguing about what to do with the stubborn two legs. They're clearly suffering from a form of species-wide delusion, declared Councillor Ythmora, her crystalline body chiming softly as she spoke. They believe their hardships make them stronger, when obviously suffering only makes creatures weaker. Perhaps a demonstration would help, suggested Councillor Rektar, flexing his massive arms. If we show them how much stronger and more capable we are, they might understand the benefits of joining us. Ambassador Thekroon raised one of his thick hands. The Confederation has always preferred peaceful solutions. But perhaps Councillor Rektar has a point. Not about force, but about demonstration. All eyes turned to him as he continued. What if we proposed a friendly competition? A series of challenges that would allow the two legs to see the differences between our species in a non-threatening way. What kind of challenges? Asked Cathari, who had been invited to attend as the lead researcher on the species. Simple tests of survival skills, Thekroon explained. We choose several different environments and see how each species handles them. When the two legs see how much better we perform, they'll understand why we're trying to help them. The council liked this idea. It seemed fair and educational. The two legs would learn their limitations, and the Confederation would be justified in its protective policies. When the proposal was sent to Earth, Ambassador Chen agreed to the competition surprisingly quickly. We accept your challenge, she said during the next communication session. We're curious to see what you consider important survival skills. Excellent, Thekroon replied, pleased by their cooperation. We will choose 3 different challenge environments. Each species will send a small team to complete tasks in each location. The first challenge would take place on Kreshtal, a world filled with dangerous predators. The second would be on Morgeth, a high-gravity planet where construction work was nearly impossible. The third would be on Zeknin, a world with an atmosphere that damaged most equipment and required creative problem-solving. Each challenge was designed to test different skills that the Confederation considered essential for advanced civilizations. 2 weeks later, teams from various species gathered at Kreshtal. The world was covered in thick forest filled with creatures that had evolved specifically to hunt and kill. The challenge was simple: survive for 5 days while gathering food and building shelter. The Vex team was confident. Their natural speed, venom, and heat-sensing abilities made them perfect predators. They immediately began hunting the local wildlife with deadly efficiency. The Zim team was equally confident. Their thick armor and powerful claws allowed them to fight any creature they encountered. They built a fortified shelter and prepared to defend it against any attack. The Kethli team used their tentacles to climb high into the trees, building a secure nest above the reach of most predators. Then there were the two legs. The human team consisted of 5 individuals, 2 males and 3 females. They carried simple tools and seemed laughably unprepared for a world full of monsters. This will be over quickly, Dr. Vextal observed from the orbiting monitoring station. The poor creatures will probably be eaten by the end of the first day. But something strange happened instead. The humans didn't try to hunt the dangerous predators. They didn't build a fortress to fight them off. They didn't climb into the trees to hide. Instead, they sat down and watched. For hours, they simply observed the world around them. They made notes about which creatures came out during the day and which appeared at night. They studied tracks in the mud and listened to different sounds in the forest. "What are they doing?" asked Dr. Zimara, confused by the humans' behavior. Cathari was watching with growing fascination. "I think they're learning." By the end of the first day, while the other teams were fighting or hiding, the humans had mapped the entire local ecosystem. They knew which paths the predators used when they hunted, and what they avoided. On the second day, the humans began to move, but they didn't fight the predators. They used what they had learned to avoid them completely. When a pack of Kreshtal hunters came through an area, the humans were always somewhere else. When night predators emerged from their dens, the humans were safely hidden in places the creatures never looked. The other teams watched in amazement as the weak, clawless humans moved through the deadly forest like they belonged there. How are they doing that? Rektar growled in frustration. His Zim team had lost 2 members to predator attacks, despite their superior strength and armor. The answer came on the 3rd day, when the monitoring team observed something unprecedented. A massive Kreshtal alpha predator, the most dangerous creature on the planet, was stalking toward the human camp. The beast was the size of a small building, with teeth like swords and claws that could tear through metal. The other teams prepared to witness a massacre. Instead, they watched the humans calmly pack up their camp and walk away, not running in panic, just walking at a normal pace in a direction that seemed random. The alpha predator followed for a few minutes, then stopped and returned to its territory. They led it in a circle, Cathari realized with amazement. They knew exactly how far it would chase them before giving up. But the humans weren't finished surprising everyone. On the 4th day, instead of just avoiding the predators, they began using them. When a smaller predator was chasing them, they led it directly into the territory of a larger predator. The 2 creatures fought each other while the humans slipped away safely. When they needed food, they didn't hunt animals themselves. Instead, they waited for predators to make kills, then used clever tricks to scare the predators away and take the food. They're using the entire ecosystem as a tool, Cathari whispered in amazement. By the end of the 5-day challenge, the results were shocking. The Vex team had lost 3 members to predator attacks. The Zim team had lost 2 members and spent most of their time defending their fortress. The Kethli team had survived safely but had barely found enough food to eat. The human team had not only survived without losing anyone, they had thrived. They were well-fed, rested, and had even had time to make detailed maps of the entire region. How is this possible? Ambassador Thekrun demanded during the debriefing session. Ambassador Chen smiled. We didn't try to conquer the environment. We learned to work with it. But you're so weak, Dr. Vextal protested. You have no natural weapons, no armor, no special abilities. No, Chen agreed. But we have something else. We have the ability to understand and adapt. Any species can adapt, Counselor Yithmora chimed dismissively. Can they? Chen asked. Your teams came to Kreshtal and tried to use the same strategies that work on your home worlds. Our team came here and became part of this world. Cathari was furiously taking notes. This was not what anyone had expected. The next challenge will be different. Rektar growled. Kreshtal may have favored your sneaky tactics, but Morgeth requires real strength. Chen's smile didn't waver. We look forward to it. As the teams prepared to move to the next challenge world, Cathari found herself questioning everything she thought she knew about survival, strength, and intelligence. The 2 legs had just succeeded where stronger, faster, more dangerous species had failed, and they had done it not by being better predators, but by being something the galaxy had never seen before. They had been perfect adapters. But if they could adapt so well to a world they'd never seen before, what did that mean for the next challenge? And more importantly, what did it mean for the Confederation's assumptions about which species were truly advanced? Cathari was beginning to suspect that the 2 legs were about to teach the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. The second challenge took place on Morgeth, a world where everything was 3 times heavier than normal. The thick atmosphere pressed down like a crushing weight, and the gravity made every movement exhausting. The task was to build a shelter capable of housing 50 individuals within 10 days. Most species found it nearly impossible to work on Morgeth for more than a few hours at a time. Counselor Rektar was confident this challenge would finally show the 2 legs their limitations. Let's see them adapt their way out of simple physics, he growled. This requires real strength, not clever tricks. The Zim team was perfectly suited for high-gravity work. Their massive frames and powerful muscles barely noticed the increased weight. Within hours of landing, they were moving huge stones and building a fortress that could house 100 individuals. The Vex team struggled more, but their serpentine bodies were efficient in the heavy gravity. They began constructing a series of underground tunnels and chambers. The Kethley team had to work in shifts, resting frequently in the gravity suits their technology provided. But their multiple tentacles allowed them to manipulate several tools at once, making their work highly efficient. The humans landed on Morgeth and immediately collapsed. The gravity hit them like a crushing wave. They lay on the ground gasping for breath while the monitoring teams watched with a mixture of pity and satisfaction. Finally, Dr. Vextal hissed with satisfaction. Now they see the reality of their physical limitations. But Kithari noticed something odd. The humans weren't panicking or calling for rescue. They were talking to each other in quiet voices even while struggling to breathe. After several hours of apparent helplessness, something changed. One of the humans managed to stand up, then another. Within a day, all 5 humans were moving around, though slowly and carefully. How are they doing that? Dr. Zimara wondered. The gravity should be crushing them. They're learning to work with it instead of fighting it, Kethari observed. Look at how they move. The humans had developed a completely new way of walking. Instead of fighting the gravity, they let it help them. They used controlled falls to move forward, turning the crushing force into momentum. They worked in teams, supporting each other's weight and sharing the burden of heavy tasks. But their real innovation came when they started building, while the other teams tried to construct shelters the same way they did on normal worlds. The humans designed something completely different. Instead of fighting the gravity to lift heavy materials upward, they dug down. They're building underground, Kithari noted with growing excitement. But not just any underground structure. The humans had figured out how to use Morgeth's crushing gravity as a construction tool. They dug channels and let the heavy materials roll exactly where they wanted them. They used the planet's own weight to compress and strengthen their building materials. Within 3 days, while the other teams were exhausting themselves lifting heavy stones, the humans had created a complex underground facility that seemed to build itself. That's impossible, Rektar protested. You can't use gravity to build upward. You're right, Ambassador Chen agreed from the communication screen. So we didn't build upward. We built down and let the planet do most of the work for us. The human shelter was not only the largest and most complex structure built during the challenge, it was also the most comfortable. The underground chambers were naturally protected from the harsh surface conditions. And the humans had even figured out how to use the planet's gravity to power simple machines. How did you think of this? Thekrun asked, his 4 eyes blinking in confusion. We couldn't lift heavy things like the other teams, Chen explained. So we had to find a way to build without lifting. But that's not how construction works, Ythmora chimed in protest. It's not how construction works on your worlds, Chen corrected gently. But it's how construction works on Morgeth. The third challenge moved to Zeknin, a world with an atmosphere that destroyed most electronic equipment within hours. The chemical composition of the air corroded metal and disrupted energy systems. The task was to establish a functioning research station that could operate for 30 days. This time, the Confederation teams were prepared for human surprises. They watched carefully as the humans landed and began their usual observation period. At least this time they can't use our equipment against us, Vextal said with confidence. This challenge requires advanced technology and theirs will break down just like everyone else's. He was right about the equipment failing. Within 6 hours, every piece of advanced technology on the planet had stopped working. The monitoring system shut down, the communication devices failed, and even the simple tools began to corrode. The other teams were in crisis. Without their technology, they were almost helpless. The Yith relied on their crystalline energy matrices, which cracked in the hostile atmosphere. The Vex needed their heat sensors and chemical analyzers, which failed immediately. Even the mighty Zim found their weapons and armor dissolving. But the humans seemed almost unconcerned. Why aren't they worried? Dr. Zimara asked from the orbiting command ship, which was far enough away to avoid the atmospheric effects. Because they're not relying on technology, Kithari realized. Watch what they're building. The humans had brought materials to Zeknin, but not the kind anyone expected. Instead of advanced alloys and electronic components, they brought wood, stone, and organic compounds. They're building with primitive materials, Rektar said with disgust. That's not a research station, it's a cave dwelling. But as the days passed, the human cave dwelling began to look more and more impressive. They had created a complex facility using nothing but basic materials and simple mechanical principles. They built pumps and filters using stone and wood that cleaned the air better than electronic systems. They created communication networks using mechanical devices that carried messages across long distances. They even built instruments that could measure and analyze their environment using nothing but carefully balanced mechanical parts. "It's all mechanical," Cathari whispered in amazement. "No electronics at all. The atmosphere can't hurt machines that don't use electricity." The other teams watched in growing amazement as the humans not only built a functioning research station, but began producing useful data about the planet's environment. Their mechanical instruments were measuring atmospheric composition, tracking weather patterns, and even detecting underground resources. Meanwhile, the other teams were struggling just to survive without their technology. "How is this possible?" the Karun demanded during one of the few communication windows when the atmospheric interference briefly cleared. "We've built research stations before on worlds that don't allow advanced technology," Chen explained. "When electronic systems fail, mechanical ones still work." "But mechanical systems are primitive," Ythmora protested. "They're slower and less accurate than proper technology." "Sometimes," Chen agreed. "But they're also more reliable. And on a world like this, reliable is better than advanced." By the end of the 30-day challenge, the Human Research Station was not only functioning perfectly, it was producing more useful data than the electronic systems the other teams had used on previous worlds. The Confederation Council was stunned. 3 challenges, Cathari summarized in her report. 3 completely different environments requiring different skills. The humans succeeded in all 3 by using methods that none of our species even considered. They didn't win because they were stronger or faster or more technologically advanced, she continued. They won because they were more flexible. They changed their approach to match each situation instead of trying to force each situation to match their approach. The implications were staggering. If humans can adapt this quickly to environments they've never seen, Cathari said slowly, what does that say about their ability to handle other challenges? What does it say about their potential for growth and development? Ambassador Thekrun was quiet for a long time. "It suggests," he said finally, "that we may have seriously underestimated this species." "More than that," Cathari replied. "It suggests that our entire understanding of what makes a species advanced might be wrong." The 2 legs had not just passed the Confederation's tests. They had redefined what the tests meant, and now the Council had to decide what to do with a species that seemed to grow stronger with every challenge they faced. A species that didn't just survive in new environments, but thrived in them. A species that turned every limitation into an advantage. For the first time in galactic history, the Confederation faced a question they had never needed to ask. What do you do when the primitive species you're trying to help turns out to be more adaptable than you are? 6 months after the challenges ended, everything changed. The ancient warning systems in the Galactic Core began screaming. Deep space monitoring stations detected massive energy signatures moving through dead systems. Ships that had been silent for millions of years were powering up and beginning to move. The harvesters had returned. Cathari had only heard stories about the harvesters. They were machines built by a civilization that had died out long before most current species had evolved. According to the old records, they had been programmed to maintain their creator's empire by destroying anything that might threaten it. When their creators died, the machines had continued their mission. They had destroyed dozens of young civilizations before finally shutting down millions of years ago. Now they were active again, and they were heading for the Spiral Confederation. "Emergency Council Session," announced Ambassador Thekrun as he called together representatives from every member species. "We have a serious problem." The first reports were terrifying. Harvester ships had appeared in the outer systems and were systematically destroying everything they found. Colonies, space stations, entire worlds were being reduced to basic materials that the machines used to build more of themselves. "Our defense fleets can't stop them," Admiral Kexthor reported grimly. "Their technology is too advanced. Their ships repair themselves faster than we can damage them." "What about our automated defense networks?" asked Counselor Ythmora. "That's the worst part," Kexthor replied. "The harvesters are using our own defense systems against us. They're turning our computer networks and automated weapons into tools for their own use." Species after species reported the same problem. Every piece of advanced technology they used against the harvesters was somehow turned against them. The machines seemed to understand every galactic technology perfectly and could corrupt or control it at will. We need to evacuate the core worlds, suggested Dr. Vextal. Move everyone to the outer rim and hope the machines lose interest. That's not a solution, Rektar growled. That's just delayed extinction. These machines will keep growing and spreading until they've consumed everything. The debate went on for hours without anyone finding a real solution. Every strategy they suggested relied on technology that the harvesters could turn against them. Finally, Cathari spoke up from her position in the corner. What about the humans? Everyone turned to look at her. What about them? Thekroon asked. They've shown an ability to solve problems in ways none of us considered, she said. Maybe they could find an approach we're missing. The primitives? Ythmora chimed in disbelief. What could they possibly do against machines that our most advanced fleets can't stop? I don't know, Cathari admitted. But 6 months ago, we didn't think they could survive on Kreshtal or build on Morgeth or create working technology on Zeknin. Maybe they'll surprise us again. The suggestion was met with skepticism, but as the reports from the front lines grew worse, desperation began to set in. It can't hurt to ask. Thekroon finally decided. Open a communication channel to Earth. Ambassador Chen appeared on the screen looking concerned but alert. We've been monitoring the situation, she said immediately. We're sorry to hear about the attacks on your worlds. Thank you, Thekroon replied. We're reaching out to all member species for ideas. Do your people have any suggestions for fighting these machines? Chen was quiet for a moment. May I ask a question first? What methods have you tried so far? Everything we can think of, Admiral Kexthor answered. Direct military assault, electronic warfare, even attempting to negotiate. Nothing works. They turn our own weapons against us and ignore all communication attempts. I see, Chen said thoughtfully. And you said they can control your technology? Any technology they encounter, Kexthor confirmed. They seem to understand all galactic systems perfectly. All galactic systems, Chen repeated slowly. What about non-galactic systems? The question confused everyone. What do you mean? Thekroon asked. Well, Chen explained, these machines were built by an ancient galactic civilization, right? They understand galactic technology because they were designed to work with it. But what if we use technology they weren't designed to understand? Like what? Dr. Vextal asked skeptically. Chen smiled. Like human technology. The idea seemed ridiculous at first. Human technology was primitive compared to galactic standards, but as Chen explained her reasoning, it began to make a strange kind of sense. The harvesters can control galactic computers because they were designed to interface with galactic systems, she said. But our computers work on completely different principles. Our mechanical systems don't use the same engineering approaches. Our weapons operate on different theories. Even if that's true, Rektar protested. Your primitive weapons couldn't possibly hurt machines that our advanced ones can't damage. Maybe not, Chen agreed. But we might be able to confuse them long enough for you to find a weakness. The council debated for hours. Some members thought the idea was crazy. Others pointed out that nothing else was working. Finally, desperation won out. Very well, Thekroon announced. Earth is invited to join the defense effort. But understand that we cannot guarantee your safety. These machines are extremely dangerous. We understand, Chen replied. We'll do our best to help. 3 days later, human ships began arriving in the battle zones. The ships looked strange compared to sleek galactic vessels. They were blocky and mechanical, built from simple materials using basic engineering. They carried weapons that shot solid projectiles instead of energy beams, and their computers were clunky mechanical devices instead of elegant quantum matrices. This is embarrassing, Vextal hissed, as he watched the primitive fleet take up positions. We're asking Stone Age savages to help us fight the most advanced machines in the galaxy, but something unexpected happened when the first human ships encountered a harvester vessel. The ancient machine stopped. For the first time since the crisis began, a harvester hesitated. It scanned the human ship repeatedly, as if trying to understand what it was looking at. It's confused, Cathari realized with growing excitement. It doesn't recognize human technology patterns. The hesitation only lasted a few seconds before the harvester began its attack. But those few seconds were longer than it had paused for any galactic ship. The battle that followed was unlike anything anyone had seen. The human ships couldn't hurt the harvester significantly, but they could do something no galactic ship had managed. They could avoid being controlled. When the Harvester tried to hack their computers, nothing happened. The human mechanical computers didn't interface with galactic systems at all. When it tried to turn their weapons against them, the simple projectile launchers kept firing at their original targets. When it attempted to override their navigation, the mechanical steering systems ignored the electronic signals completely. "They're immune," Admiral Kexthor whispered in amazement. "The machines can't control them." But the real breakthrough came when the human ships began working together with galactic forces. "Combined assault?" Chen's voice crackled over the communications system. "We'll confuse them and draw their attention. You hit them while they're trying to figure us out." The strategy worked. While the Harvester machines were focused on trying to understand and control the impossible human ships, galactic forces were able to attack from unexpected angles. The ancient machines, designed to fight predictable galactic fleets, couldn't adapt to the chaotic combination of primitive human tactics and advanced galactic firepower. One by one, Harvester ships began to fall. The tide of the war turned not because humans were stronger or more advanced than the galactic fleets, but because they were different in ways the ancient machines couldn't predict or understand. Final battle analysis, Kithari reported to the Council. After the last Harvester ship was destroyed, the crisis was resolved through the combination of galactic firepower and human unpredictability. The machines could not adapt to technology they had never been programmed to understand. "So the primitives saved us by being primitive?" Yithmora chimed with a mixture of gratitude and confusion. "No," Kithari corrected gently. "They saved us by being different, by approaching problems in ways no one else considered, by being adaptive." The word hung in the air like a revelation. Ambassador Thekroon looked at the data for a long time before speaking. "I believe," he said slowly, "we owe the human species a significant apology, and perhaps a new classification." "What kind of classification?" Chen asked when the formal recognition ceremony was held. "Partner species," Thekroon announced. "Not member species that need guidance and not primitive species that need protection. Partner species that can teach us things we never knew we needed to learn." The Spiral Confederation had learned an important lesson. Advancement wasn't just about being stronger, faster, or more technologically sophisticated. Sometimes, advancement meant being able to think in ways no one else could imagine. Sometimes, the most valuable trait in the universe wasn't specialization, but the ability to adapt, and sometimes, the species that seemed the most primitive were actually the most evolved of all. The Two Legs had not just joined galactic civilization. They had shown it a new way to grow. As Kethari completed her final report on the species she had once